Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we will be brewing a Cooper's 86 Days Pilsner. I will replace the included Cooper's yeast with the Safale USO5 yeast. This will not be a lager, this will be a clean and crisp summer ale for warm summer days. I will add either Jarrillo or sauce hops in order to increase the bitterness. I will also add acidulated malt in order to get a pH around 5.2. I will also add a few hundred grams of pilsner malt and the wheat dry malt extract to increase the head of my beer. I will use a beer nutrient and 1 tablet of Whirlflock in order to get cleaner beer. Scan this QR code if you'd rather want to follow Cooper's own recipe. And this is what we're working with. This is the Cooper's 86 Days Pilsner. I have no experience with the Cooper's kits, so this will be a new experience for me. So let's see how this one turns out. I start out this brew day by heating up my water up to boil temperature. The reason for this is to make sure that the water is as sterile as possible. I will later on pitch my yeast into the water once it reaches around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Yeah, that took a lot more time than it should. Next, I make sure to heat up the Cooper can so it will be easier to pour later. I will be adding around 500 grams of pilsner malt. You can of course add more if you want to increase the ABV of your beer instead of adding dextrose like I did. This will result in a much cleaner pilsner tasting beer. And here I'm adding around 120 to 130 grams of acidulated malt to get the pH that I want. I'm using a mash bag, but you can use a simple laundry bag instead. Here I'm making sure that I have the correct temperature for my grains. I'm looking for around 64 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Time to add the grains. Make sure to give it a good stir so you won't have any dough balls in your mash. I added a second stage of mashing, 5 minutes at approximately 75 degrees. And here is the reason why I can't do all grain stuff all the time. Don't fall for the temptation of squeezing the bag. Just make sure it's drained properly and put it aside for now. Once the grains are removed, increase the temperature and give it a good stir. The next step is to get your sparge water ready. I use the same temperature as my mash temperature. And just pour it over the grains. Make sure to make a mess all over your kitchen. This will increase the happiness of your wife. I'm using sauce hops as my 90-minute boil addition. The last 15 minutes of my boil, I'm adding 100 grams of dry malt extract, 1 Whirlflock tablet, and a teaspoon of yeast nutrient. I top cropped some USO5 yeast from another active fermentation, and I will be using this instead of the 2 packets of USO5. And as always, make sure to make a mess all over your stove. Make sure to stir every now and then so the liquid malt extract won't caramelize and burn. I'm only boiling this for 5 minutes. If you didn't add more grains or dry malt extract earlier on, then you may add a few hundred grams of dextrose to increase the original gravity of your beer. I'm using a pressure fermenter, and I set the pressure at around 1 bar, or approximately 10 psi. Now this is a tasting of the Cooper's 86 Days Pilsner. It came out pretty clear. It's been in the keg for around 2 weeks now, so it's still fairly young, and it could use a bit more conditioning, but let's give it a test and see what we got so far. Cheers. I mean, it's fairly decent. Still got that extract twang that I'm not particularly fond of. But I mean, it's pretty decent. If I were to change anything, I would probably just skip the dextrose and just stick to grains. The only reason I went with such a small amount of pilsner malt is just because I'm used to making extra kits that's 2 cans, and so I kind of messed that up, and I had to add a lot of dextrose instead, and I think the pilsner malt could give it a lot more character and maybe eliminate some of the kit twang that I'm tasting now, but let's see. I mean, it's really good for what it is. Just one of those cheap Cooper kits that I modified just a little bit. But so if I were to brew this again, I would skip the dextrose and just stick to pilsner malt as my fermentables. So yeah, this is a brand new channel. If you have any suggestions to what I could do differently, or if there's anything that you want me to brew in the future, please comment down below and subscribe for more. Cheers.